I haven't been able to figure that out. Please let me know in the comments below if there is an exact fix like the A7 IV, literally just one switch and it changes all that.
There's a lot of people who are still talking about the Lumix S5 Mark II. People who are excited to switch from Canon or Nikon or Sony to the Lumix system because of the S5 Mark II. In fact, recently I saw a video talking about all the great things about the S5 Mark II, except for one thing that was irritating. And it's something that bugged me about Lumix cameras for the longest time because I didn't know why it was operating this way. And it seemed really obvious to me that it should be different, but I never knew how to do it until I think it was my friend Rhett left a comment saying you can actually switch this. And what I'm talking about is the settings between photo and video.
Hopefully there's a quicker way, but from what I've seen, there just isn't. And I really wish that there was just that really quick switch mode.
For the longest time, whenever I was using a Lumix camera, whenever I switched between photo and video, I would always have to rechange all my settings. I would adjust my shutter, I would adjust my ISO, my white balance, whatever it was. Basically, everything had to change whenever I flipped to photo mode and then back to video mode. And this became really irritating, especially when I was shooting in Vlog for video. And then all my photos would come in to Lightroom or however, looking just kind of wrong, incorrect, because I shot with that Vlog picture profile for my photos, which I didn't want. I didn't want to have to deal with a LUT in Lightroom. I just wanted that for video. And this drove me nuts for years. And it was one of those things that I just accepted and I kind of made work and I just dealt with it. And I think we can often find ourselves in that same position, regardless of what camera we're using or what device we're using. We just get frustrated with how it operates, but we say, whatever, I'll just make it work. But there is a way to change this in the Lumix cameras. You can have the photo settings completely separate from the video. So I want to show you how to do that. So this will work on any Lumix camera, on the GH6, the GH7. I have the S9 right here with me, but it works on the S5 Mark II as well. And all you need to do is go into the menu. Of course, that's where all the settings are. And you're looking for the gear wheel and you're looking for this first tab, image quality, and you're looking for page 2, and you're looking for something called Creative Video Combined Set. This is the worst name for this because that's why I never found it, because it was not intuitive, it was not obvious. But if you go into Creative Video Combined Set, by default, it'll be this way, right? So everything will be the kind of picture camera, the photo camera. Of course, this is a hybrid, so they're one and the same. There's no difference. But by default, it's this way so that your video and your photo settings are shared. But if you change this to the more movie camera icon, and I do this for everything. So my photo style, my metering mode, my autofocus mode, like everything is separate for video and photo, but you could really customize this however you like. So let's say you want your exposure settings to match, you can have it do that and it'll be shared between photo and video, but that's unlikely. Now, white balance is one that maybe you do want them to remain the same. So you can just toggle between video and photo and keep the same white balance, or maybe you want it different. So basically, if you have the movie icon, the filmmaker camera, the cinema camera icon, again, it's all just the same camera, it's the S9. But if you have the movie icon, that means that the settings are separated. So photo has its own settings, video has its own settings, and it's as easy as that. It's a really simple, easy solution that once you go back and switch between the different modes. So if you're shooting in photo mode, you'll have all your settings. So like I can change my ISO all the way up. Like let's say I go something crazy high, something like that, 25,600. And of course, let me change even my shutter here and then my aperture. I'll change, some crazy settings, whatever. I change my white balance even to like the, let's see here. Let's go to the tungsten light bulb. Sure, why not? Now, when I go back to video mode, all those settings should be different back to what I had in video mode. So I just changed everything for photo, but none of that affected my video, which is really, really nice. And this is often how I want to shoot. Now you will see a lot of people who will suggest using custom, the custom modes, the C1, 2, and 3. And I think there's even subversions of that where you can really refine your camera settings. But I tend to avoid those for the most part because they're kind of irritating in that everything gets saved. Every little setting gets saved to it. And so if you pick up the camera and you switch a setting because you actually need to make an adjustment, and then you flip back to a different custom mode and you come back to it, that setting isn't saved unless you actually took the time to manually save it in there. And that's good, I think, for certain environments. If you are in a studio and you know for sure that your white balance is never changing, your settings are never changing, you need to be permanent forever because everything else around you is permanent, then I think a custom mode definitely makes sense. But even things like just switching between frame rates and stuff, I find to be more intuitive and easier just in the menus rather than having different custom profiles for the different camera settings. You can use them if you want, but I think that was like a poor workaround for something that truly just needed to be fixed at a menu level, which is that creative video combined set. That silly name for that silly feature. It's actually not a silly feature. It's a great feature that you can separate these things. I think other cameras work that way by default. So in the video that I watched, he mentioned he's familiar with Sony, and on different Sony bodies, the photo and video settings are just inherently excluded from one another. Thankfully, because Lumix usually gives you a lot of great options, there is the option to either keep them the same, because I imagine there may be situations where you want them to be the same, and they also give you the option to separate them if you want to do that as well. You just have to know that that's where it's at in the menu, and it's got this goofy name that you probably would never come across, normally. Really one of those things you probably need to read the manual, but who's reading the manual these days? We're all watching YouTube videos. So I figured I'd make one showing you how to do that, because once I figured out that was an option, and it's kind of like one of those like, duh, I've just been suffering for years, not even thinking that it was a problem, just assuming. And that really does get you in trouble. When you assume, when you think like, whatever, I'll deal with it later, and you never do, those things can eat away at your production, they can eat away at your efficiency, and they can eat away at your enjoyment of using the camera. This video that I saw, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting the creator's name, I'll probably put him like over here somewhere so you can see the video, and I'll probably link to it, because it's another great showcase or testament for somebody who is enjoying all those benefits of Lumix, of the S5 Mark II, and how incredible it is, and really only being held back by this weird oddity that's a buried menu setting that is not obvious, it's not intuitive. And so the more that you point that stuff out, then, collectively we can, share our wisdom with each other and our experience, because that is the best way to do it. You can make it work with those custom, modes on the dial, but I think that's really clunky. It's not the right solution for this particular problem, even though there's lots of people where it's their go-to. Because again, I just think they don't know about creative combined video set. I mean, it's like, I forget the name of it because it's so goofy. But it's there, it's in the menu. That's how you do it. You separate your photo from your video settings, and you can actually get what I think most of us want, which is different settings for each. For me, my photo, I'm always shooting raw photos, but I do like to enter my raw state with a standard picture profile. For whatever reason, in Lightroom, maybe it's different on the photo editor that you're using, but whenever I'm shooting vlog photos, they come in weird as the raw data comes in strange. Where if I'm using a standard picture profile, it comes in a lot more normal for a photo, and then I'm not dealing with LUTs in Lightroom or anything like that. I'm just editing the raw data like I'm used to. Again, that might be different depending on what software you're using, but for me in Lightroom, it's always been a problem. And then same thing with my aperture or my white balance or my ISO. All of these things I usually want to be different between video and photo. Same thing obviously with your shutter. In video, I'm using shutter angle, so 180 degrees, but in photo, I'm using usually higher shutter speeds if I can to reduce motion blur. So there's a lot of different needs for photo and video, and it's good to have those settings completely separated. It's strange to me that the Lumix cameras default to matching them the same, because like I said, on other camera systems, the default is that they're separate. I'm sure there's a good logic or a reason. It's probably just comes down to the end user, what most people want, what most people expect. I'm sure if you're dialing in your settings in one mode and then you switch to another, it's frustrating if they are different. But for me, it was very frustrating that they stayed the same, and I was constantly having to do extra work, taking extra time. And in the grand scheme of things, it's probably seconds. It's not that big of a deal to change your aperture, to change your shutter, to change your ISO or whatever. But also changing a picture profile every time, having to remember that, the mental weight of just switching every time you're doing photos and then you're switching back. The point of the hybrid is that it can work in a very, seamless, easy way. And it's kind of, not a point and shoot, but it's that easy. It's run and gun, it's point and shoot. You can take photos, you can take videos. And having those settings separate just makes life, for me anyway, that much easier. So if that's helpful to you, you're welcome. I didn't invent this. I didn't come up with it. It was actually Rhett Thompson who told me, I think at the beginning, if I'm getting that correct, I believe he left a comment on one of my videos like, hey, you can actually change that. And so just trying to pass it around, let more people know about this. I can't say it's an awesome feature. It's just like, it's a feature and it's kind of hidden. So you should know about it. Don't use the custom dial if you don't have to. Go in, look for that creative combined video, creative. See, I always forget. What's it called? I have to dig back into the menu here. And just a reminder, it's on that gear wheel, image quality, page 2, creative video combined set. That's what you want. It's not even super obvious. Let's see, does it say? All right, creative video mode settings are prioritized. I hit display to like get more information. It's not actually that helpful. How about on this one? No, yeah, not that helpful. Let's see back on this one. Select whether to use PASM mode or not in creative video settings. See, again, this is not obvious. It's not clear what this even does based on the camera itself. So if you were just digging through the menu, you'd probably have no idea until you start playing around with it. And because it's just an icon, you're kind of left wondering, like, what is this even doing? Well, do I want it the picture camera? Do I want it the movie camera? Which one do I want it? If you want them separate, make it the video camera, the movie camera with the film reels, even though no one is filming with cameras like that anymore. It still is the icon. A lot of our icons are just old, floppy disks and CDs and all that sort of thing. Folders, like who's still using physical folders? But we have them on our computers. So look for the movie icon. That'll get what you want. Separate those settings so that you're actually able to work the way you probably want to work, which, again, maybe if you don't, now you just know about the feature and that's there. But if anyone has a problem, that's how you solve it. That's the better way. What's it called? Creative Video Combined Set. I will never remember that.